Welcome to Thriving in the Game, a podcast dedicated to exploring what Black women need to navigate the corporate world of technology, offering insights, strategies, and personal stories that will affirm, validate, and encourage you on your journey up the corporate ladder. I'm your host, Alicia. Join me as we learn how to thrive together. Throughout these last few conversations, we've been emphasizing the importance of defining your values and being strategic in order to better advocate for yourself and your career decisions. As much as I believe that what is meant for you is for you, I also have to reiterate that the road won't always be smooth. At some point in your tech career, you will experience obstacles and challenges if you haven't already. It doesn't mean that we approach our careers with a lens of negativity. However, you do need to arm yourself with strategies now for when those difficult moments show up. With an information technology career that spans over 4 decades, my guest today, Tina Debose, is a global leader of 50 software and automation engineers across the U.S., Canada, Africa, and India. As the first female hired at 2 major companies in a technical role, she is accustomed to taking the paths less traveled and not being afraid to risk big and fail often. I know Tina as a loving, inspiring, and servant heart-led friend that has been a part of my tribe for almost 10 years. It is her expertise as well as her passion and purpose in coaching and leading individuals that I hope will resonate with you as we explore navigating the difficulties and challenges with ease that come along with the corporate technology environment.
So currently, the company that I'm with, I'm blessed to be with now, March 10th of 2024 was my 41st year here. And I'll tell a little bit about the story of getting here, but just being in the IT industry, in the technology space, I worked at another company prior to that for a couple of years. So I've been in this industry about 45 years, which is amazing, you know, as young as I am. I must have been 5 when I crawled into this, obviously.
Exactly.
But I really got into this career and this journey on a little bit of a whim, primarily just because I think my personality is one to kind of seize the odd opportunities that others may not see. And so a very dear friend of mine and I decided to go to a workshop that was being presented about 46 years or so ago. They were offering certificates. You could go into being a software developer. Well, at that time, they called it a programmer. Or you could go into being a computer technician. And we go and we're in line as the 2 lines to which track you're going to go and observe and learn more about. I looked at her and I said, do you notice in the line we're in to be software programming, there are men and women. I said, do you see that other line? There's not a woman over there. There's only men in that line. And my immediate thought went to, well, they're going to get married someday. They're going to have to take care of a family. So they may make a lot of money. I'm going to go get in that line. Literally, that is how it happened. And I got into that line and I listened to the course and what it offered, the certification program. And I signed up and I was the only female in a class of 30 guys taking this certification program. And one of the things I faced in that where it just kind of slapped me and said, okay, this is going to be different, is at that time, we were mainframes. And so it was a physical job. We were learning how to change memory stacks, where you would use something that you would pick up a big block of ice with now. That's what we would use to pick up a memory stack to change it. And so the men, which I think were just their nature, they would come over and they would want to help me, or when we were using an oscilloscope to do our tweaking and things, they would come over and they would say, okay, Tina, let me help you with this. And the instructor had to tell them, you're going to have to let her figure it out because you're not going to be there with her when she's working. We appreciate your chivalry, but she's got to figure this out. And it was at that point where I think it settled with me this is going to be a career journey where I'm navigating some uncharted territory. So it started there. The company that offered the training offered me a job. And so that was my first work opportunity. And I would say one of my most emotional challenges in that first job was I was working a night shift. And I was working with another gentleman, so it was just he and I. And I was leaning over the console to do some work. And all of a sudden, I felt like, I felt a little off-centered and I was falling back. And this gentleman took the liberty to pull me down onto his lap. I was like, what is happening here? So I politely turned to him. He's an older guy. But I just let him know, you've touched the wrong person. And if you ever do that again, I promise you, you will not see the light of day. So, it started, like I said, very early on. This is going to be different to navigate. I had to make the decision. Do I stop? Do I run? Do I quit? Or do I find a way to pursue and persevere? And here I sit now. I've done that, but it's not come without sometimes physical and then other emotional challenges where you have to figure out, okay, what do I really want to do? And how far am I willing to go to keep pushing forward in this?
So you noted that you were the only woman in a class of 30. Were you also one of the only people of color?
There were two other gentlemen there that were people of color. And so that brought a little bit of comfort in that you can't relate to me being a female, but you can relate to me being Black. And so that helped a little. But what has been beneficial to me through this is whether it's someone of the same sex, whether it's someone of the same race, or just someone with the same awareness that you're walking a different walk. You almost need someone always to align with you. Like I think a popular word now is allyship, but you need someone to align with you to say, hey, I'm willing to help you navigate this. I'm willing to walk with you through this bumpy road because you're going to step on some mines. And so it doesn't blow up completely and take you out. I'm willing to offer you some support. When I hired on with the second company, I was the first female that they had hired. So it was interesting because at that time I was single, but subsequently I got married and I got pregnant. And they were like, wow, so we have a situation. I'm like, oh, yeah, we do. And they were like, we don't have maternity leave. I'm like, pardon me? And they were a smaller company out of Minnesota. I was working in San Diego at the time. And they said, we've just never had to have maternity leave. You're the first female in this field in our company. And so we just have never had to have it. And I said, well, we got to figure something out because I plan to come back. But ironically, I lost that job as a result of that. So we came back here to the East Coast. When I decided to go back to work, I think my daughter at the time was 6 months old, and I interviewed with the company I'm with now. The first question I asked on the interview, I said, do you have maternity leave? They said, yeah, we do. I said, okay, I'm in. And I look at where we are today with the whole family leave and everybody gets leave and it's a great thing. But I laugh at it now to say I actually lost a job because it just was not a thing at the time for a woman in the technology space.
One of the things that I've been thinking about is how do we help early career Black women in this space prepare for difficult conversations, especially in regards to salary conversations, benefits, requesting a raise. But if we think back to when you were interviewing, although maternity leave, now it's protected, right? So you have Family Medical Leave Act, but especially if you are a programmer or in a highly male dominated field, which most of technology is, but I'm thinking data scientists and still software engineering. What do you think helped prepare you for that conversation?
Well, necessity sometimes I think breeds bravery. And that it was something that I had lived through and experienced in a not so comfortable or pleasant way. And so I thought, okay, I have to understand what this is going to look like for me if I have to navigate this again. But to the salary question, with some of the things I share with the women is you have to find a way, and whatever that is for you personally, to get comfortable and confident with what you bring to the table. But I think sometimes as women, we lack that confidence and assurity because we know we're behind the eight ball. We know that we're trying to still knock on some doors and break down that glass ceiling. And so you don't always feel as confident or comfortable to just ask for what you deserve in that regard. So I'd been out of work for 6 months, and that was the first time I'd been out of work that long since I was 16 years old. And I think then I was 25. So it was a scary feeling for me. So they offered me $1,000 less than what I was making at my previous job. I did not think or feel comfortable or confident enough at that time to negotiate and say, well, why would I take that? I'm coming to you with this experience. I'm about to help your company realize the difference in diversity and being the first woman that's coming here in this role. Just kind of leverage some of that. But I didn't think to do that. I think I was, some anxiety or angst about, I need to get a job. And so I accepted it. And I encourage the women that are on my team now, because this was shared to me by a dear friend of the company in talent and acquisition. She said, we will come with more skills than the position requires, but will not ask for what we deserve. Whereas a male will come with half of the skills for the job.
True.
And demand not only the salary, they'll demand some additional leave. They'll ask for an unlimited list of things, and with confidence and assurity that you should give me this. And so I think we have to really understand what intrinsically sometimes causes us not to feel confident or comfortable to speak up and ask. Because what's the worst thing they're going to do is say no. And we have to be okay with this no is just next. It doesn't mean there's not another opportunity out there for me.
In a previous episode, we also talked about walking in the reality of our expectations, right? It's not everyone coming out of college is going to make $150K in their first, let's say, programming or business analyst job, right?
Yes.
So I think what we have to remember is that, like, for now, we're coming into a market where there are a lot of layoffs. And
Yes.
so the salary ranges are not going to be as high as they typically are. The expertise is the same, but, business is business. So you got to know the game. So you do have to pay attention to market trends. And I think the other piece is also knowing or asking, what is the range for this position? Because you don't want to undercut yourself. But to your point, our target listeners, they've been in their first job. So they may be negotiating in their second or even third job. So typically we hear pad your previous salary by 10 to 15, 20%. But I think it's knowing the range, knowing the market, but also, like you said, knowing the value of your experience.
That's very true. But I layer that because when I'm interviewing people now, especially some of the younger ones, and they're confident, some of them. But what I encourage in that, because you laid it out very well, is to also look at the things that are not just about the money. The one thing that was very important to me was the flexibility. You have to look at where you are in life, layered with where you are in career, and then what's important to you in this season of life, because we go through different things in different seasons. And so in my early career, the flexibility to be a professional, but also be a wife, also be a mom, because then after my daughter, I have twins that are 2.5 years different. So then I'm dealing with young children. And so I still want to be a part of that experience, but also trying to grow in my career. And so flexibility was important. I was fortunate that I've always been remote, and being able to set my hours and my work day based on the task and the responsibilities that I had was important when my kids were younger. And so I factored that in. So you look at the whole package. What are they offering in vacation? What are you getting in the benefits package? What are the working hours? What are the demands? Is it a high pressure position? Look at the whole of what it is that you're going after.
I think that's good because I was going to ask, at what point do you compromise? I think that answers that question very well. It really is about the season that you're in. You don't want to leave dollars on the table, but you also want to really look at the entire package.
One of the books I read early on was a popular book, Who Moved My Cheese? And you pay attention to things that are happening. I had the good fortune, when I look at it, the person that interviewed me that day, 41 years ago, I reported to them for 28 years, which is very uncommon. And it was ironic that the year before that, in the volunteer work and things that I did at my church, I had started working with a leader that was a very strong and forceful leader. And it was just total opposite of my personality. And in that, I recognized how to have some of those hard conversations with somebody that's kind of abrupt and sometimes crossing the line a little bit of disrespectful, but has positional power. I was like, okay, I'm a woman of faith and that my steps are ordered and I'm here for a purpose. Little did I ever know all of that was preparing me for the next role in my job at this company, because an opportunity came along where this new project was starting up and I was kind of liaising with the project and met this new manager. Okay, I'm looking for, this person. I'm getting ready to, build this team. I'm looking for someone to lead it. Did not think they were talking about me. I'm thinking there, Tina, you know a lot of people and that kind of thing. So I'm recommending someone. And he looks, he said, well, actually, I was looking at you. Because I knew I brought some of the things he was looking for to the table, but not all. And that's back to what we said earlier. We as women think, I have to have all of the skills you're requiring. I can't be missing anything before I can even apply. But He said, no, I was looking at you. So I was like, okay. And now layer that with, I had maxed out in the role that I was previously in, just the way their pay scale and different things work. There were no more promotional opportunities for me at that time. And so when you couldn't get promoted to a higher level or band, your salary, had to stay within that band. And so I said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and apply for this position. Now, mind you, this was a whole new role and another part of the organization. It was taking me over to this development side of the house. I was in the customer service side of the house. And I guess the nature of the person I am, because this person I reported to and worked for 28 years, we grew up together. We're the same age. So we done grew up together with this company. And it's a courtesy, hey, I'm applying for this job. Come to find out, they were not excited about that. I look at it now and think it wasn't malicious per se, but I think it was just a different limited mindset than what I had. And they thought they were protecting me. They were like, I don't know this person. They're new to the company. They don't understand our culture. And this person always was very protective of the team. So he's like, I've protected you all these years and ensured when there were layoffs and things that you survived. And I don't know that this person would do that. And so with that, they literally tried to block the opportunity. I had already accepted it. They had made me an offer. It was almost $20,000 more than what I was making. I hadn't had a promotion in 3 or 4 years. And I have an opportunity to have about a $20K bump. And so I accepted the offer, found out this person was trying to block it. And I went to HR and I was like, well, what do I do here? Well, you've accepted the role, so only you can decide. You can rescind your acceptance, but you've accepted it. So I moved on and their conversation with me was, you're just not ready. I said, no, I have been preparing you for such a time as this. You've already worked in this volunteer space dealing with this. So you're going to do fine in this new role. And not only to say, I've been in this like 14th year now over here, my opportunities to learn, to grow, and to evolve have just continued over these last 14 years. And the difference is about every 2 years now, I'm under a new manager. So it's been a little different to navigate. It's a lot of movement in that regard, but it's taught me how to leverage and to work with different people. I've worked with people that have been very supportive and encouraged my continued career growth. I've worked with someone who was very blatant and overt that I don't know you, I don't like you, I'm not supporting you, I'm not even respecting or recognizing your position or role. And I said, okay, all right, people show you who they are, believe what they show you. I'm going to be the successful leader that I am for my team, irregardless of what you're not trying to be for me as my manager. And I'm going to learn how to work around what you're trying to not do. And they were gone about a year and a half later. So what I realize is what's for me is for me. When you have people that come up against you for no good reasons, it taught me to be a little stronger. It taught me to build a little tougher skin, taught me how to navigate and leverage when someone is intentionally trying to hold you back. Show up each day and be the best for the people that you support, and you not let that lead into, I'm just going to sit and complain all day about, no, we're going to thrive. And I'm going to make you and your numbers look good, irrespective of what you're trying to do, because you're not going to be here long with that attitude.
That opens up a couple of thoughts for me. So one, you had someone who saw potential in you, which is amazing, right? We don't always have that when it comes to promotion. You do have to prepare, capturing feedback, keeping a tab of all of your accomplishments. And so the good thing in your case was you had someone who saw something special in you that like, hey, we can work together. But the person that you had kind of grown up with, and I think that can happen in any phase of life where someone who's really comfortable, who knows you very well, can operate in almost a selfish place of feeling like you're not ready. So what did you pull from in yourself to say, no, I am ready and I know what I'm bringing to the table. Yeah, I have things to learn, but I know I'm ready. How did you have that conversation?
One thing I think I mentioned to you earlier, I always kind of am drawn to or look for those odd opportunities where I was like, well, why is it only men in this line? I would look for project opportunities that were the least popular, maybe the most challenging. And I just had a history, a running history of seeking those opportunities out, raising my hand for them, I guess, if you will. Nobody wants to do that one. That's a hard one. I'll take it. And I think some of it stems from, if I'm very transparent, the need to prove myself. A lot of times I was the only female in that role in a lot of the meetings and the workshops and conferences. I'm the only woman. And so I got to prove myself. I'm going to win at it to show you that I can. And so in doing so, I think it was building a level of confidence that I didn't realize I was building, because I look back and I said, well, if I could do that, then I can surely, do this
over here. Right.
Yeah. And I think was raising my hands were just some of those very difficult and responsibilities over the years. It just built up a confidence in me that I guess I didn't recognize was that much until I took that step or made that bold move.
When I think about that, our experience as Black women in corporate, specifically technology, is very nuanced. It can be nuanced culturally, obviously racially, gender-based. Mm-hmm. So even now, we see a lot of the programs that are post-George Floyd around DEI, now there's that new little dog whistle around didn't earn it. And so sometimes that attitude is there simply because you are Black and simply because you're a Black woman. So then how do we navigate that?
I think recognizing and understanding, if I am applying for this, if I see a role or an opportunity and I feel that I bring to the table what they're asking, as we've kind of said, and I think we really want to push this point home. If they're asking for 10 things and you bring 8.5, come to the table, go for it. We're not saying you have to bring 10, but stand strong in your 8.5 and speak to it. And then speak to also your willingness to learn, your willingness to grow. Because I think that's where we miss out sometimes. We think, oh, I'm missing these two. Well, okay. Technology is an ever evolving, growing field. I will never know all there is to know. And once I settled that with myself, I can learn something today and then there's something new tomorrow. If I'm willing to learn, if my attitude is open, if I have that growth mindset, then I present, this is what I bring, and this is how I can help this company grow, and this is how I can help this project grow, or I can evolve this role or evolve this team. When I interview for software developers, I don't just look at what you've done and all that you may know technically. I look at your attitude. And I will take a person that can demonstrate I am willing to work hard. I am eager to learn. I look at the soft skills and I'll ask, tell me, whether it's personal or professional, some of your biggest mistakes. And when they explain it to me and say, but this is what I learned from it, and this is what I've taken away from it, I'll give you a chance quicker because, something could change in the job and I might need you to pivot. So, yeah, I think a lot of it is just come with the energy and attitude that I don't know it all, but I'm willing and open to figuring it out.
Yeah. Sometimes it is a bit difficult to navigate that, right? There's pivoting and being flexible and being adaptable, especially in technology. We know how projects can be spun up, spun down, but there's also sometimes that continuous cycle of change in terms of like your leadership or maybe even your responsibilities. That can create difficulty that you have to manage. And so what are your thoughts around that for someone who's early career? How do they handle that?
That's a very good question. Let's understand what's challenging for you here and then think, what's the worst thing that could happen? And when you get them to identify what that worst thing is, what could you do in that situation to be okay? Once that's identified, okay, what are your steps? And recognizing the support structure that you have. I do believe, too, that when you feel like you're on an island, when you have that, it's just me, I'm the only one. But then as you start to talk in group, then you can bounce off each other a little bit. And then you start to think, oh, well, it's not just me. And you may have to kind of figure out how to settle in that. This may look differently for me for a season, but is this different going to take me into something newer and I'm going to evolve here? That would be my best approach to supporting and trying to navigate that.
What I hear you saying is it really is, at least in regards to just navigating continuous change, it's reframing.
Retool. Yeah,
Retool.
I like where you were going with that. Yeah, retool, because it may be, which I think are the harder lessons for us to hear and learn is, maybe it's time for me to retool and do something different. Maybe this uncomfortable opportunity, because it might be time to retool and look at doing something else. Change requires you to step outside of that comfort.
It requires discomfort. It's one thing to just say, change is hard, change is the constant. It's another thing to walk it. And so I think the more comfortable you get with being able to walk in discomfort, and that's not to say enduring like an overly hostile or toxic environment, but if we're talking about just challenges to the way that you've been doing things, or even, having to walk through some of the reporting changes or organizational structural changes. Like you said, look for the opportunities, volunteer for the more challenging project and see where the change leads you.
And know when to get support. I think, and
how do you know? That's a good point. How do you know when to get support? So
I had one opportunity where I had to go to HR. It was a push and a struggle for me to do it because, that's layered. So, once I do this, there's no going back. But I just really felt I am continually being looked over here. And I know that I'm doing some good. And then what made it blatantly clear, someone else recognized it. Someone said, Tina, do you realize that this new person came in and got this, and this opportunity, and you've been here grinding away at it? You need to talk to somebody. And I was very reluctant, but I was like, I'm going to have to, because I can't navigate this one independently. And so I went to HR, and it was an awkward moment because that was, Why would you do that? I thought we were friends. I thought we were good. Well, if we were friends, you would have been giving me the opportunities, right?
There you go.
But I needed the support. And it was a wake up call for that person to say, oh, I am unconsciously biased here. It took that little engagement with HR for them to just self-reflect and to say, yeah, I could have been handling this differently. So I think you have to, weigh those out, because there will be times, if we're honest women, there will be times when it's the right time to make the call and say, I need some support. I've tried to navigate this, but it is a hostile work environment, or it is an unfair situation. And I need someone else to get involved to help them see this picture that I blatantly am seeing.
Right.
And what do we do with this?
Because I think even in terms of like just your voice being dismissed or just not heard, especially with women, but especially Black women, women of color, my favorite is always literally making a suggestion, and then here's this white guy who says the exact same thing. Oh, that's a great idea. And it's like, but I literally said that 5 minutes ago. And I think for me, having a 20-year career, I've been able to, as the leader of certain meetings, sometimes call that out. And especially if I see another woman who's made a suggestion, I'm like, oh, Mark, that's a great suggestion. That adds on to what Indu suggested a little while ago in terms of doing XYZ, because it gets so frustrating experiencing it or seeing other women go through it, but it is unfortunately still par for the course.
It is. It really is. And I like that strategy. The other thing I encourage people in their careers and how to navigate is you got to come up with some strategies. One strategy I use is I will kind of make a lighthearted joke, but there's something to this joke. Do be clear. I love what you said, in that it's frustrating enough when you're dealing with it, but then when you are sitting back and seeing, it being dished out to others, you're like, this is just so unfair. And I have to say something here. So, I'll say it in a kind of a lighthearted way to help the male individual understand, yeah, this is what you just did, whether it was by intent or whether this just flows out of you. Be aware that this is what you did. It's not fair. It's not funny. It's uncomfortable. So just building those strategies, I think it's going to be critical for surviving, but not just surviving, thriving. Because one additional strategy that I built was I had to find ways to get validation outside of work, because you can take it for so long, being a punching bag emotionally or mentally, being looked over, not being recognized, not being heard. And so I recognized, along with my former business partner, that there's a digital divide in the low-income neighborhoods, and I maybe could do something about that. So we decided to start a little brick and mortar training company called Computers 101. And our target audience were going to be seniors who didn't know Word, Excel, those kind of things, and how to use it, didn't know how to use the internet. So I would come in the evenings when I got off, and we bought computers and set up a whole lab school. And it was the most rewarding. So where I was lacking that validation and reward at work, I was able to get it there. And it got me through some of the difficult seasons of being overlooked or underpaid. So whatever strategies you have to identify for yourself, figure out what you need at the end of the day when you lay your head down. What do I need to still feel whole? What do I need to still feel important? What do I need to still feel valued? Because if they don't see it, it doesn't mean it's not so. I guess a takeaway is identify and build your strategy plan, because you're going to need it.
Yeah. Yeah. As you say that, having the strategies are most important, but then consistently having to employ those strategies can take a tax on you. It can create hurt. It can create frustration. And then sometimes we experience that isolation if you're the only woman, if you're the only Black woman, and even sometimes if you have people that look like you can still feel isolated. But that's why I was very particular in using how do we navigate with ease, because I do think having those strategies and, like you said, pursuing that validation outside of work can help you hold on to your joy and your hope. And definitely my long-term desire is for women younger in their career or transitioning into this field is to pursue leadership, because there's so few of us. And I know the battle is tough. But when we think about keeping you moving forward, I love that you say, find that validation, find that wholeness outside of work.
Yeah. Find your communities. And in this work that you're doing, which I just honor so much, and I think it's going to be so beneficial, because this could be one of the strategies that somebody approaches. I just need to hear. Success leaves clues. I know that to be true. And so if you have the opportunity to listen to women who have failed and got back up, found a way to still stand, and are still figuring it out, I want those women young in their career and their age, and I want them to have the tools that I necessarily didn't have. Because I came in here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to this company, 24 years old. And I thought I could conquer the world until a few years. I was like, oh, this mountain going to be harder to climb than I thought. I want to share with them, this is how you can still stand too. These are some tips and these are some things to navigate it. I'm going to help support you through this and help you figure out this crazy company. And that's why I get up. That's what brings me joy, to keep coming up and showing up here and putting up with and tolerating. That's because my purpose now is to just keep encouraging, to keep enlightening, but mostly to empower them, that they too can get on the other side of this and with a smile.
I've had to learn the hard way that difficulties and challenges are just part of the journey. Like Tina, I remember the first time I was sexually harassed at work. I even remember the first time when I was supposedly invited to the table, only to be shushed into silence. I was angry, but honestly, it hurt. I expected so much more support from those who were supposed to be my leaders. When we reflect on Tina's story, how would you handle if someone tried to block your promotion? How would you handle if someone was overtly disrespectful? How would you handle a lack of support from your manager? How would you handle your voice being dismissed or that of a team member? These are just a few of the situations that Tina, other guests, and I have all experienced over the years, sometimes multiple times. But there's no way you're going to have a 10, 20, 30, or 40-year tech career without some moments of difficulty. You have a choice to make. Will you stop? Will you run? Or will you quit? Or will you be prepared with strategies to advocate and stand up for yourself, and most importantly, persevere? Don't you be the reason or let anyone else convince you that you're not ready when you know that you are. In order for you to navigate career difficulties and challenges with ease, you first have to know the values you stand on. Then you have to get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. Trouble is going to show up at some point. Put your strategies in place, develop a growth mindset, retool when you sense it's time to pivot, and remember that this journey is not meant to be solo. Find your mentor, find your community, and above all, find your validation outside of work and let that build your confidence and remind you of your value. As we closed out our conversation, I asked Tina to share any advice or parting thoughts for early career and transitioning career women who are learning to better navigate the difficulties and challenges of their tech career.
I have stood on my faith, and what I know to be true is that the darkest and roughest times, prayer worked for me, believing and trusting that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through this. And doors that were opened that I know I didn't open. That gentleman showed up at that time and offered that opportunity. And it was not just all my doing. So I stand on the faith that I've had just throughout all aspects of my life. And then for me, I believed early on that I could do anything I put my mind to. I just believed that. I thought I could get into this field because I saw a lot of men there, but I believed that I could be successful because if I put my mind to it, if I believe I can do it, I'm the only thing that can stop me. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I just appreciate you so much.
Just keep up what you're doing. It's going to make a difference for a lot of people.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Take some time to reflect on what you heard here. Be sure to follow us on IG and subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. Find us at Thriving in the Game on both. If you have a comment or recommendation, DM or email me. You can find my email in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you as we build community around thriving in the game. Until next time, take care.